Congressman Dan Boren spending his last few weeks in Congress. Hi, I'm Chris Casteel at the Oklahoman. I'm here with Congressman Dan Boren, who's here for at least another month, maybe it looks like, another 3 weeks.
It all depends on the negotiations.
Before they let you retire. Obviously, this is somewhat of an unusual last stretch for Congress to be involved in this much, before new Congress begins. You're in your last few weeks, but you may be voting on some really important things. Tell me what you hear now about the tax and spending negotiations, so-called Fiscal Cliff, and what you think is going to happen.
From most of the rank and file members that I talk to, I hear that we are going to go over the cliff, that both sides are too far apart, that it's just probably going to be taken back up in February, and maybe some of these tax cuts will be put into place retroactively.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks very likely that we're going to go off the cliff. You never say never that maybe something gets done at the last minute.
Right.
If it does get done, it's going to be December 30th, December 31st. It won't be, I don't think, in the next few days.
Now, I think a lot of people probably are now familiar with the term fiscal cliff, but what that means is that automatically in January, tax cuts that were originally passed in 01 and 03 would expire. Everybody's taxes would go up pretty much, and a lot of spending cuts that would disproportionately hit the Department of Defense would go into effect as well. What would you like to vote on? What would you hope that they could? What would you hope your last votes would be up here?
If I would like to do something along the lines of Simpson Bowles, I don't mind looking at some way we can generate revenue. I would not. I don't want to see the tax rates go up. Actually, I'd like to keep the Bush tax cuts in place, but look
for all
at
income levels.
For all income levels. And then go in and look at these, deductions, credits,
Right.
And I think Speaker Boehner's offered $800 billion. That's a lot of money. The devil's in the details. So if we could do $800 billion there, and then we could go in and actually have real entitlement reform, means testing, Medicare, and Social Security, those sorts of things that can save some money on the spending side. We could actually cut some discretionary spending as well, and DOD, there's some areas that we can find some savings.
Right.
But to just say, well, let's just cut it across the board, we're not going to do any specifics. You may have some really vital programs that are cut, and at the same time, if we go over the cliff, when you raise taxes on everyone, not just income taxes, but you're talking about capital gains,
Right.
dividends, dividends going from 15% to 43%. So a company like OG&E that pays a nice dividend, that could hurt their stock. That could hurt our state.
Now, so, you think that we're going to go off the cliff, and that's because of this kind of partisan standoff that we've grown so used to up here in the last few years. You've been through a lot of these, crises things, the debt limit and other things. And I was wondering if you're leaving Congress with the impression that a lot of people have, which is that it's just broken. Do you think Congress is broken?
I think it's broken, but I think it's fixable. I think there are more people like me that are in the middle. That are leaving, the people that try to find consensus, and both parties are electing folks that are way out on the left or right flanks, and there's no incentive for them to compromise. And so if we're going to solve these huge challenges, whether they're fiscal problems or other problems, we can't do it when there's no incentive for people to work together and to give a little bit.
Right.
Yes, it's broken. Redistricting reform needs to happen, so you have more centrist people come to Congress. Campaign finance reform, making sure that you raise money from the people that can vote for you, so you're not, a telemarketer. You're not always
Right.
calling people all over the country. I had to fly all over the place to raise money for my election. And then there's the outside groups,
Right.
whether they're liberal, conservative, whatever your political stripe. I think it would be better if those members of Congress were in their districts, spending time, at the pie auction or the, the Rotary Club.
Those kind of things that you go to regularly, that congressmen do go to regularly.
That's right.
And as you mentioned, you really were the very definition of a centrist up here. You would have years where you would vote almost as much. You're a Democrat. You would vote almost as much with the Republican majority in a year than you would with the Democratic majority. And how many people like that are in either party now? Do you think?
Not many. I'm a blue dog,
Right.
and they were
the conservative Democrat
group, and probably, I think before 2010 there were like 50 some odd, and today they're 14 On the Republican side of the aisle, the more, they call them Tuesday group or Main Street Republicans, it's a very small number, and they're either retiring or they're being defeated. So the ultra liberals and the ultra conservatives really don't face any strong general election challenge. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, as an example, is a progressive member, and she's not worried about a Republican beating her. She's probably worried about someone even to the left of her. I know in Oklahoma we would say, I can't believe that, and the same would go on the Republican side. More and more people are worried about a party primary than they are about the general electorate.
Right. So you're the only Democrat in the Oklahoma congressional delegation, and there won't be any next year. I mean, what does that tell you about the state? Anything? I mean, obviously you were a very conservative Democrat representing Eastern Oklahoma. You're from Muskogee, and your replacement is a Republican. I mean, does that signal any kind of shift to you at all?
It does. It not in the values that Oklahomans have, and we've always had those same kind of values, but I think things have become much more nationalized, so you can't run as a local Democrat, as I did as an Oklahoma Democrat.
Right.
You get so tied to national figures. But I do think Oklahoma has room for a Democratic Party, and I think it would be healthy for Oklahoma to have a really two-party system, so that there is this compromise. I mean, right now in the legislature, you're talking about, I think, over 70 Republicans in the House. When I was in the State House,
what was it when you were there?
Democrats held the majority with 53 seats, and the Senate, I think, is even worse. But I would like to see over the next 4, 6, 8, 10 years for that to get a little bit better, more of a 50-50 split, because we still have more registered Democrats in Oklahoma than we do any other party.
Do you see that happening, though, in the rural areas, like the ones that you represent? I mean, do you see kind of a shift away from the Democratic Party in rural Oklahoma?
I do. I think the areas where you see the Democratic numbers grow will probably be in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. I would like that, if we still had some rural Democrats, but it looks that way. But, Oklahoma City's growing, Tulsa's growing, and you have some places like Norman and other areas where Democrats are being elected. I still think a Democrat can get elected statewide, probably on the state level, but they have to be the right fit for the state.
Right. When you came up here in 2005, would have been when you were first sworn in, you were single, now you're married with 2 small children. And Congress can be kind of a grind. A lot of people don't realize all the travel involved. And when you are home, people think you're off, but really you're not off. You're going to these pie suppers that you're talking about and meeting with your constituents. Has it been a lot tougher? I mean, has it become, and then you have to campaign. I mean,
it is very tough, because the elections, I saw the elections in the future were going to be competitive, more and more fundraising, more and more time away from home.
Right.
And my daughter's 5 and my son's 2.
Right.
My daughter's just getting to the point where she knows when I'm leaving to go to D.C. and Daddy, don't leave, and that sort of thing. Last night, I actually got to see her play an elf in a Christmas play. And so those are the kind of things that I don't want to miss.
Right.
You don't think about it when you're single, and then all of a sudden, bam, you have an instant family with 2 kids, and time flies.
Yeah.
I feel like yesterday I was being sworn in. So,
and a lot of, it seems like the rule these days that most congressmen do not move their families to the D.C. area.
That's right.
So really the only time that you see them are, like, maybe depending on when you get out, Friday, and then you're back, turning around, getting on a plane on
I was
Monday.
going back every week.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any votes or accomplishments that really stand out for you, and is there anything that you wish you had accomplished in your time here?
Votes, I don't know about votes, but I would say some of the things I accomplished, being ranking member on Indian Affairs Subcommittee, it's something that I actually worked to get that subcommittee created.
Right.
And for Oklahoma, we have a lot of tribes, and that's really important, not only for our history and our culture, but also our economy.
Sure.
And so that was something that I'm really proud of. Also being an advocate on energy on the Democratic side of the aisle.
Never got that Nat Gas Act.
Never did. We were so close, but maybe someone will get it done. But more than anything, Our office kind of got a reputation as a constituent service office. We were doing about 50,000 pieces of mail in the D.C. office, but we had a lot of casework.
Yeah, and that's important. That's a lot of kind of
a lot of
veterans
part
of your job.
knew, hey, call Boren's office because he can help you get an appointment at the VA and all that sort of thing. So that was good. And I had some really good people that had worked for Tom Coburn and Brad Carson and Bill Brewster. We had some people, and some of them hopefully will be going to the new member in Mark Wayne Mullins, so that there's this ease of transition, and it's not about Democrat or Republican. It's about helping the people.
Right.
And so we've been very fortunate.
You're going to work next month for the Chickasaw Nation.
That's great.
Speaking of tribes, can you tell us what you're going to be doing for them?
My title, and everyone's like, tell me what the job's all about. My title is President of Corporate Development. And basically what that entails is diversifying their portfolio of business. The Chickasaw Nation, most people say, well, they've got these big gaming halls and everything else. Well, they do a lot more. They're involved in the healthcare industry, energy industry. They have a company called Solera. They have chocolate, Bed-Ray chocolate. They have a manufacturing facility. They bought the Siemens building. Chickasaw Nation Industries did in Marietta, saved a lot of Oklahoma jobs. So there are lots of things that the Chickasaws are involved in that don't necessarily pertain to gaming, and they're diversifying. I mean, think about, over 10,000 employees that aren't going to move their headquarters to another state. I mean, there's not going to Houston. They're going to stay in Oklahoma, and then also to provide that cultural history. And having a leader like Governor Anatubby, who's been there quite a while, and that's one of the things I asked him. I said, now if I'm going to come aboard, I want to make sure you're there. And he is fantastic. He's been really nice to me, and he's been great for the state.
Well, Congressman, good luck with that new venture. It's been a pleasure to cover you, and I'm sure we'll see you up here again sometime.
Okay.
And look for more on this in the Oklahoman and on newsok.com.